Our minds are so powerful that what we focus on reverberates through every aspect of our lives. So why not see what happens when we put our attention on all the good things people are doing? Join me for the good with Teresa G as we start a ripple effect by focusing on all the greatness in the world. Today, I am excited to have R. Wall and Maggie Dewar with us, the co-founders of Mural Mice Universal, a growing collective of artists doing both public and private community murals. Their passion is to create meaningful public art for the sake of community. Their murals serve to beautify public space, provide educational resources, and engage people in enjoyable, therapeutic, creative process. Their goal is to cultivate a sense of identity and place through art. Welcome, you two. It's so great to have you guys here.
Week.
Thanks. It's good to be here too.
Let's start off with how did this vision of Mural Mice begin?
Well, we began in 2005, and I was just traveling through Prescott on my way on a cross-country adventure, and I ran into R, who was just beginning the brainchild of the Mural Mice and a community mural project that would encompass the whole community. And so I jumped on the crew as a mouse and donned my ears and tail, and we were soon engaged in involving the community in as many interesting activities and fun activities that we could to create murals.
Yeah, it was. I had lived in Prescott for 10 years leading up to this, and worked with a lot of nonprofit groups, and kind of played a role as a backup figure, just kind of help people with their art, posters, website, photography, crafts, and such. I was with a number of different groups back in the day in Prescott. And one of the things I had noticed was that in the 10 years I lived there, nobody had really been placing murals. Any art, the walls hadn't changed that much, and it didn't look like they were going to change unless, well, I guess I had to do something about it. So came up with the idea of doing this, placing what originally was 5 murals in 5 years. It was a short-term goal. I wasn't trying to overdo it. I didn't know whether it would work out for me, if it was something I wanted to continue. But I set a goal of 5 murals in 5 years, and they would be 5 murals that specifically spoke to things that nobody had spoken about very much. Culture, the history of the town, marginalized subject, humanitarian issues, things that were just like, if you look in Prescott and you see on the square, there's a very specific thing that they're trying to say to people that come from out of town. And it was more in line with, Bucky O'Neill and some war monuments and such like that. So I thought we could do better than that. And so that was the plan, was to place 5 murals that would speak to the community specifically. And that overall, the most important part was that rather than doing it for people, for the community, I would get them to do it for themselves. And so we wanted to when I met Maggie, we started playing with ideas for how we wanted to address these matters, get people excited. And during that period, we had started our first mural in Prescott in 2005. It was called Art for All. And because the arts were highly underfunded and still are highly underfunded, we set to task telling the history of the arts. We thought that would bring up more awareness about what the contributions art make to our community and the importance of them. So in the process of doing that and raising the money and painting that mural, we would scamper around on the scaffoldings late at night because it's Arizona and it's hot in the day. We paint at night a lot of times. And people were saying that we looked a whole lot like mice scampering around in the lights, and kind of got dubbed the Mural Mice. And so that's how the name came about. And the project, once we had been dubbed the Mural Mice, it was a matter of making everybody a mural mouse and bringing everybody into it. Got very exciting, And we started bringing schools into the process, the historians into the process. The local to-dos in town started to see how great it was for everybody. But one of the things I was the proudest of at the time was that we had created an artocracy, the act of electing our public art, because we knew that there was a sort of unfriendly council in City Hall that was not that in favor of the arts. We would give everybody a chance to vote on our designs, and then give City Council a chance to vote on the designs as well, with no veto power, just the ability to vote. And so they were very enticed by that procedure, and they saw that there was a major amount of support coming from the community, and we began squeaking up for public art. And City Council got involved in it, and everybody seemed to get involved into it. Thousands of people, as a matter of fact, helped us make 5 murals in the downtown area. And we completed our project in 2010, celebrated it in 2011, and then we moved on up to Flagstaff, and we've been there for 5 years painting murals.
So I'm wondering what started this passion of yours with murals. So the town that you grew up in, was there a lot of murals? Did you do graffiti? Like where did this stem from?
It just stemmed from, I had always been making what I consider to be positive illustrations of the potential for humanity and for good things to happen in society. And I took place in a smaller mural project down by Granite Creek in 2001. And I saw that there was a certain amount of light, like a radiating hue of light that came off of everybody that was involved in it. We were working with at-risk children from Mile High School. And I saw that they were on fire. They were lit up with the ability, because they had a place and a part to play in our community through making art together. So I did not have a background of painting murals or live in a town that had a lot of murals. In fact, it never really occurred to me until I was helping out on the Granite Creek project, and 100 children, 100 people in the community supported and helped that project happen. And at that point, I knew there was something more than just a picture on the wall. This was something that had the ability to really brighten up the community and give it a sense of place, sense of pride, a sense of ownership. And so it was kind of a no-brainer. It was kind of like to see that people were really turned on by the art. And since, I didn't know what any of this was going to look like, it was kind of like, it was just an open book, and I let the community guide it. And we were just sort of the tools of the community to make their vision come true.
Well, I have to say, when I moved to Prescott, I sure loved all the art everywhere, because I came from a place that didn't have many murals. And so I just was like really captured by the murals, because it seemed like every mural was so vibrant and had such a story behind it. So how do murals increase the sense of community, do you think?
Well, I think that, I guess you begin with a wall. You've got a wall and you say, okay, we're going to put something on this. But you can, as an artist, you could just take a wall and put up a piece of art. But we found that, especially in Prescott, when we were like, murals were sort of a taboo, it hadn't been done. So we were kind of like breaking down the door a little bit and beginning this whole idea that you could paint on the walls. And so we wanted to be sensitive about it. And very, very early on in the process, Prescott's kind of a magical little town, and there's lots of different characters there. We ran into someone who had said, "That's a great idea. Just ask permission and be respectful." And so we took that deeply to heart and decided that the best way to go about these projects was to involve people. And so we simply started asking, okay, we've got this wall. Our theme is, the first mural was about art. So we wanted to ask people what should be on a mural about arts. And all these different things started coming in, and surprising ideas. People really spoke to the things that were happening around them, the things that they had been a part of. But then as we talked to older members of the community, they started talking about the history and the things that, they remembered from Prescott in the past. And that was a really important element to the overall identity of the town. So we started just kind of weaving these concepts together, and we wanted to bring like sort of the new generation of Prescott that was really starting to change the demographic of the community, and the old like stronghold, the people who've been there forever. And we wanted to bring them together and have a mural that kind of represented everyone.
And a conversation.
Yeah, we wanted to build a conversation. And it was really interesting that the two sides don't really speak a whole lot. There's sort of an old guard of Prescott, and then there's these new younger people, or even sort of retired people from other towns and other parts of the country that are moving there that didn't really have an understanding of the town. So as we started bringing all these different kinds of people into the picture and bringing them to the wall and showing them what we were working on, and it started building community on its own. And we were sort of just in the center of this like sort of vortex of people sort of rotating around the project. And of course they would meet there, and there would be painting days, and people would be introduced to each other, and you'd start seeing that there was connections happening, and people starting to learn that they don't need to be afraid of each other. We felt Prescott, to me, not being from Prescott, I immediately felt a sense of fear from people. Being younger, not being from there, obviously being a hippie or being so from somewhere else, I felt that people were afraid of me. So sort of breaking down these fears and letting people just be themselves and come together on the mural. The community built itself, really.
And one of the really great things about developing the mural mice and the murals is the creation of the ears on our hats. We told everybody they come along and say, hey, how do I get a hat? And we say, well, just got to volunteer, give a hand and earn your hat, earn your tail. And it became a really neat thing. So everybody wanted a set of ears in town. And this took away a lot of the fear factor. Now we look silly. Once you look silly and you sort of make fun of yourself, you see other people disarmed and they realize, wow, what can these guys, these guys are interesting folks, And
just to give my listeners a little background, we're talking about Prescott, Arizona. And Prescott is a very interesting town because there is Prescott College there. And Prescott College has a lot of diverse students and a lot of what would you guys say? More of the
liberal arts.
Yeah, it's liberal arts. And so, but then there's the mix. A lot of people don't know this, but Prescott has one of the largest VA hospitals. And so because of that, Prescott has a large population of homeless people. Because
you also have Embry-Riddle, which is a drone training base, CIA training base. It's a very conservative pilot training school. And so that is an interesting twist in the mix.
And then you have a lot of retired veterans that are not homeless. So who else are we missing? It's just like such a...
I think it has one of the largest bases of women's Republican groups there. And it's very conservative. Like I would say overall, the politics of Prescott is very conservative. There's also, there's every, mix of like extreme, extreme religious groups.
There's an extreme religious group, like senior citizens, senior clubs, social clubs.
Lots of the senior clubs, because I remember when I was looking for a place to live there was like they would only, you had to be like 55 or up in a bunch of the places. I was like, oh, I've never seen that before.
There's a group called the Red Hats, and their only mission in life is to have fun. And if it's not fun, they're not going to do it. So they meet for luncheons with their red hats on, and they talk their talk and do their thing. But it's just like all these little clubs. I mean, we just became one more club of folks that were doing something with the arts, were proactive in the community, and it hit on it for us. It hit on the demographic of both young and old. It was something everyone could get involved in and feel great. So there was no secret society, that's for sure. It was like everything was done at the Murals, where the action was. So yes, interesting town.
Yeah, so it's a really diverse town. And so when they're saying that when you guys are talking about bringing together the young and old and all the diverse groups, that's a really powerful thing. And I of course, you can find all these different groups in, towns all over the world. But there it just seems to be a bit more pronounced than other places that I've lived and visited. And so when they're saying that, when you guys are talking about bringing all these people together, it's so inspirational, because you're bringing a community that usually hangs out in like their own little cliques.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
Sure. When I got to the town, I got in the town about 1994, and there was 20,000 people in the town, and it was very small. A lot of seniors and a few college kids, and it was like it was such a sleepy little town. And about 1994, 95, all of a sudden there was a boom in seniors coming to the town. It became it was listed as one of the greatest small towns in the country for art, for retirement, and it doubled in size by the time we started the Mural Project. So suddenly you had 40,000 people. And then the way they did that was to tell everybody in the country and everywhere in the world that this town was called everyone's hometown. And that was the phrase they used. So now you had a lot of influx of sort of people from other states and other towns all moving into Prescott at the same time. And you didn't really know how to put your finger on what Prescott was anymore. It kind of was easy to describe once, but now it become a mixed bag of nuts, basically. And that was why I believe our mural project, which was called the Prescott Downtown Mural Project at the time, was successful, because the idea was, let's figure out who we are, and then let's make murals and tell everyone else who we are, and then this is what makes up our town. It sort of orients people to where they are when they got there.
Yeah, because how important do you guys think that the sense of identity and knowing your place is to community and its people?
I think it's important. I think that there's, especially when a town starts to really change, because I think that Prescott was on this. They were starting to climb this mountain, and they were about to be a totally different town, just because there was such a huge population gain. And then, everyone was from somewhere else. So there wasn't, so people were bringing their culture with them and transplanting it there. And so, Prescott was having this kind of crisis of
identity crisis.
Yeah, they were having an identity crisis of, oh my gosh, now Prescott's becoming California. And now Prescott's, it's changing so much. And I think that, that when you can kind of help people hone into like the things that people find important. So asking the elders of the community, like, what is our history? Who are these significant people that kind of stand out, and why are they so important? You find out why the streets are named what they're named. And I think that helps to kind of create that sense of place and remembrance of like how the town was started and why it is the way it is. And then as this new generation was sort of growing up and wanting to have a voice and have a position in the community, it was really important to engage them and allow them to have that space to say, hey, we're young, we want to be part of things, we want to show off, like we've got talent, we've got energy. So I think it's really key to maybe not necessarily putting your finger exactly on what the identity is, but kind of allowing that conversation of like, hey, we're this, we're also this, we're so many different things, and we all live together, and that's what makes the town so fun and interesting. So I think it is important.
One thing that when you're working with civic art, public art and whatnot, you also have a sort of projected impression of what your town is to the tourism bureau and what they see it as. So they go out with their cameras and they write their articles and they describe it as a town that, obviously is going to be perfect in every single way, and golf courses and weather's always perfect. And so they'll put up bulletin boards and billboards all over. We're the rodeo town, things like that.
The Christmas City was a big one.
Yeah.
Everybody's hometown, all these tags of like sort of the tourist branding. But, that's kind of, it's sort of true, but I think that there's much a deeper picture. So we were trying to dig into that.
Yeah. And so with murals, it's a little different than billboards or advertisement, because what we were able to do is take and ask people to put their hand in their pocket and come out with a list of their values. And you saw, after you got people to really think about what are their values, peace, family, community, you start to realize that regardless of what color you think you are, you see yourself as, what group you see yourself as, we all have similar and common values. So we can put up a billboard of the values of our town, and then when people come and visit, they see who we are, or at least see a reflection of who we are. And we often say that the murals are the visible reflection of the soul of the community. So as soon as you get there, you see a few murals, you start to say, this is interesting. There's some stories here. There's some people with good values here. I think I'll live here, So
I love that. A visual collection of the souls of the community.
Yeah. And so it's it's a little different than advertising, because really you're subjected to advertising. And in this case, you're promoting yourself, the community, and all you are to the world. So it's a lot more proactive than reactive. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm. So, but you guys have actually done murals all over Arizona, haven't you?
Now we have, yeah. When we left Prescott, we ended up sort of on a mission to find our new home. And so we came down to Phoenix, which, obviously has millions of blank walls and opportunities. So we did get a job down here, and we worked in Mesa for a summer. And then we found out about a project in Flagstaff that the city of Flagstaff was funding. They wanted to have a mural about Route 66, which is sort of one of their historic identity, monuments running through the community. So we ended up getting the job. We won the bid. So we headed up to Flagstaff, and that became kind of a new home base for us, because we kind of fit in up there. There's a lot more arts happening. There's some money for art. There's a diverse community. And from there, we've been sort of branching out a little bit. We did a project in Tuba City on the Navajo Reservation. And also now we're working in Peoria, which is part of Phoenix, but a very different part of the town from Mesa. So we've been moving around. It's kind of exciting now to have like walls all over the place and sort of be able to experience these towns for a minute and see what they're all like. So hopefully we'll get to keep doing that.
I hope so too, because I really love your murals. So you guys have talked about this a little bit, but can you tell me a little, or tell us all a little bit more about, once you've been commissioned for a mural, how does that process begin?
Well, I guess it depends on what is needed, so sometimes we're asked to do our own work, and they say, design something for this wall. So we've done a few projects like that. But when they say they want a community mural, then we have to begin by meeting community and building community. And oftentimes it's not necessarily something that's already organized. So if we're lucky enough to be in a place that is a community space, like a library or a park or a community center of some kind, then it's just a matter of starting to meet people. So one of our most recent projects we did last summer was in a park in Flagstaff. And we decided, okay, we're in this big park and we're going to do a mural on this wall, but how are we going to get to know everyone? Because we just, we were from the other side of the hill, so we weren't necessarily part of that neighborhood. But so what we did was we established a free lemonade stand. And so we built a free lemonade stand that we pulled on our bikes, and we just went around the park serving lemonade in exchange for a conversation with people about what could possibly be on the mural that we were going to be painting. And so it was just a way of breaking the ice and sort of being fun and a little bit wild. And free lemonade, it was June, so it was really hot and it was perfect to have ice cold lemonade. And it really kind of helped us to meet people and to sort of talk up the project and get people thinking like, oh, there's going to be this fun mural project here. Maybe I'll come and be a part of it. And so through that process, we ended up talking to about 200 people. And then when we had our first painting day, which was after this long design process and community dialogue process about designs and selection of designs, and 100 people showed up to paint.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And so it had worked. We had talked to enough people. We had gotten people to care about what was happening. And then they all came and painted, which of course is the most fun part of the process.
Yeah, that's a quick analysis of what we do. But the truth is, you do the think tanking, you ask questions, you get your feedback, you survey the community in any way possible, and then we'll sit down, we'll take all that information, go back to a studio and just focus on it. We'll put all of the information all over the walls and the ceilings. We've engulfed ourselves in a nest of feedback. And then we lock ourselves in the room and we spend a couple of weeks just filtering it through into what always amounts to about, it could, a handful of pictures, which are in line drawing form. And then when we set up a place where we can hang them up, we put them in public display and people can have a conversation about them. And like I said, in the past, we've had them all of our pieces elected by the community. So yes. And then once you have something, finally everyone says, this is it. That's the exciting part. We go and we get the wall prepped and we call for a painting day. We bring everybody in to paint it. A lot of times we're also in the process of painting a mural. We're actually still working with historians and trying to get the details perfect. Around Prescott, there's 2 major murals that are history murals that we did. And they have a lot of different stories in them. And so, because there's also a very tight community of historians, passionate people that would dress up in the Victorian fashions and whatnot, they always have something to say. And so the mural might not even be fully formed until it's on the wall, and then it begins to develop on the wall itself. So while you have this mural in flux, for instance, at the public library in Prescott, it took us 2 entire summers to paint this very long mural. And it depicted 6,000 years of the history of the written word, from stories around fires to cuneiform, going through the printing press and eventually ending in space and data and in computer technology. So it covers a huge amount of information. So while we're working on these murals and kids are helping us, it's a drop-in painting kind of situation. Anyone can help us out. We realized that there's more kids hanging out than we can keep painting. So we started to develop what became the Mural Mice Theater Company. And we said, well, here we are designing an entire set. Let's make a play. So we began, putting people to task, writing scripts, and casting calls were done. Next thing you know, you have, 30 people in your theater troupe, puppet makers of all forms. And that mural comes off the wall and it speaks to the public through the story that's told by the very people that helped to make the mural. So it's that was one of the most proud things that we were able to accomplish in Prescott, was building community by giving people a place to play, using the arts to make art. And yes, we would bring in school buses full of kids from the schools and senior citizen clubs and people from the historic senior center up on the hill, Pioneer Center, and just bring everybody down and perform and show them their history for them, and hopefully make the town a better place because of it. So while like down the road, you probably never saw or heard of these theater tactics and activities we did, you've seen the mural. I always say the mural is only the tip of the iceberg, and all the substance is really built into what took place while we were making them, which is to me more important than the art itself.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. It's like you guys are orchestrating a stronger sense of community in all these places all through Arizona. And the interesting thing is that a community seems to keep coming up in all of our conversations here on the show, where it seems like that people are really yearning for community. So you're filling a need that is that a lot of people are wanting. Maybe not are able to articulate it, but when you see them light up like you're talking about, that certainly is a good sign that what you guys are doing is pretty phenomenal.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that especially artists kind of need to have that as they need to know other creative people it kind of gives people permission to work on their art. It's sort of a discouraged lifestyle now. There's so many things that you can do that make a lot more money. So I think that nowadays, like, art is sort of like not necessarily encouraged, really. And so people sort of put their creative sides away, and they hide them, and they don't practice, they don't work on their crafts. And then when you create a environment for people to come and express their creative selves, then it sort of opens people up. They like start blooming like flowers, and all of a sudden they're ready to be the star of the show, or they're ready to paint, and it's really pretty amazing. And I think that's maybe one of the most important things that we were able to do, especially in Prescott, was just create this outlet. And we found that, that it would save people's lives. Even the people were really, they had lacked that place, and that outlet for so long that they had, lost part of themselves. And so when they were able to find that community, and then they would, remember that they're kids, that they're young at heart, and they, would heal a lot of people from things that were kind of deeply, bothering them, and so that was kind of what we call miracles.
Yeah. That's great. Miracles.
Yeah.
Yeah. People can have the power within their own hands to heal themselves if they believe in themselves.
Absolutely.
And when I always tell people, when you were a child and you were drawing on the wall with crayons, and your mom came in and saw you doing that, she said, "Stop doing that," and slapped the crayon out of your hands. And then when you become a teenager, you find a rattle can and you go out and you spray paint your first graffiti piece on a wall, and the police come along and they slap it out of your hand and tell you that does not happen here. So like at a certain point, you start to think that walls are some kind of sacred thing that we're all supposed to leave colorless or, without a story in it. And so then here comes a group of artists that are painting on the walls in broad daylight with public approval. And they say, how is this possible? You're not supposed to do that. And what we're ultimately doing is we're saying, well, we're giving ourselves permission, and we're giving you permission. And so, but we only ask that we're all respectful about that. There's a responsibility that comes with placing art. A shockwave can go out and it can cause chaos, or it can cause healing. Mm-hmm. So the first step is to respect the place you live, the people that own the walls, people that are going to see this. Place your art with love and respect for others. And But it seems that permission is all people really need. And in order to get permission, there's that responsibility that comes with it. So with turning people on, you're like sort of giving them a sense of ownership of themselves, their own power. We're giving them their power, which is theirs, and they've always had it and didn't need us to give to them. But it is interesting that it makes things a little better if somebody else is doing it first.
Can you tell me, I was looking through your website and all the murals, and one that I really would like to hear the story behind is the I Am the Storm mural at Summit High School in Flagstaff.
All right. Well, so that one was working with the students at Summit High School in Flagstaff. And Summit High School is kind of a special high school because there's two main high schools in the community, and kids that are, being thrown out of these other schools are then given their final chance to graduate high school at Summit High School. So it's kind of a smaller school full of a lot of kids that have struggles. And so there's a lot of, kids that are going to barely make it. And so this school strives to, push them to graduation really, and try and keep them in school. So there's a lot of kids that are, on their 5th and 6th year of high school because of personal things that have happened. A lot of them were working and living alone, like living outside their homes. So we were brought in to work with the kids there, and it was very small classes. And so we started by our process of, introducing murals, showing them the wall we were going to paint. We do a slideshow, usually of murals from around the world to kind of get them thinking, about possibilities. And then we just opened up the conversation. And I think with the high school age kids, it was our first high school project. So it was kind of exciting for us to work with these, young adults really. And they had so much creative energy. They had so many ideas. The dialogue was just going all over the place, and they really they had a few things that they really wanted to say, and that there's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of conflict in the world, there's a lot of conflicts in our own lives, and at the time that we were creating the mural, there was all these crazy sort of storms happening all over the world. There was hurricanes hitting Florida, and the big one. There was earthquakes and hurricanes every day in the news, and tornadoes. And so it was kind of like, and of course it was the windy season in Flagstaff. So there's fires happening in California, and there's just these insane winds that blow through Flagstaff in the fall. So
and then on top of that, there was a huge amount of discussion about nuclear weaponry in Korea, and it was a summer of really intense things taking place on the planetary stage, and the kids saw all of that happening. Yeah,
they're becoming aware of all this, as they become adults. And so they, then we talked about, the world, we talked about the things that go on at the school. And so we kind of we identified that we should make this mural about sort of surviving the storm, and the way that you can survive the storm is to come together and as a community, and to respect each other, and to harmonize and so that's how the design ended up kind of coming together. And then we began the painting process, and of course it was really windy and it was really hard to work on the wall, and but the kids stuck with it. And it was the kind of school where the attendance was terrible, and so sometimes we would come to school at 7 a.m. for school, and only 3 of the kids would be there from the class. So they work with us
in the beginning, and then the principal even said that as we built momentum with the art, more and more of these kids started showing up. And he said he'd never seen the kids stick with the school for the 30 days or so we worked on the mural. They were excited about coming to school. They got something out of it. They were interactive and actually leaving a legacy, a story for the next kids that came through. It meant a lot.
Yeah, so it was kind of a neat process, to see that finally some of the kids were finally finding something that they felt was worthwhile in school. And I was painting the mural. And it helped that we had a puppy. So, the puppy would come to school with us every day too. And she would kind of, she would help entertain the kids, and give them something to look forward to as well. So it was I think that's, the story of I Am the Storm.
I think those kids, being at-risk kids, they felt left behind and abandoned. And you can feel that, you can sense that, and they needed to be engaged and not told not to do this and not to do that. But this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it together. And that really gave everybody a sense of pride that they did it together.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool because I could really pick that up from the mural, that there was this. So I really could pick that up from the mural, and I just really wanted to ask about it because I could pick that up. So, and the name of it, I Am the Storm, that's quite a name.
Yeah, it was, about empowerment, personal empowerment, and and community really coming together.
Something that you guys say is, first and foremost, we care about community. We use murals as a tool to bring people together. As artists, we want our talents to serve the greatest good, to inspire, beautify, and empower one another, to get involved in community. Our murals are an expression of what holds us together, a celebration of our uniqueness, our differences, our heritage, and our vision for the future.
Oh. Speak to that.
Yeah.
They're very important things you don't hear enough about in the news, right?
Yeah.
Like
I think that's kind of what, having a mission like that, it's like why we get up every day. Every wall that we get is a new canvas that we want to do our very best on. And so I think that it doesn't matter if it's a well-funded project, it could be something that we're basically doing for free. We always do our personal best, and we hope that, by offering that, people will come and rise up with us, and give us their best as well. It's, I guess the vision is to empower people, whatever they do, whether it's they paint with us or not, I think when people see that, someone has put a huge amount of effort and energy and love into something that otherwise is just a blank wall or otherwise just a dirty alleyway, that it kind of changes the way they think about everyone. They realize that there are people who care, and I think that's why murals are so impactful. They're out in the public. They're not hidden away. They don't belong to anybody. They belong to everyone.
That's true. And you can also look at them like a battery. We take all this energy and 100 kids or 300 kids or, all these people working on the art, and you just infuse this wall with energy and you give it everything you got. And then you step away and other people come up to it on their best or worst day and they draw that energy back to themselves. And it's endless. It's like a teacher that's always awake. It never sleeps. It's always serving the community. And like a battery, when you're down on your energy and such, you can draw from it and get inspired.
The other thing we found that it even changes the way people behave. So some of the walls that we've done have been in places that people never went, or maybe they'd go there to drink or break stuff or whatever, places that were kind of disrespected. There's quite a lot of spaces like that in our environment. We live in an environment that overall isn't really that remarkable. We have a lot of, there's sort of, especially, when we down here in Phoenix where we are now, there's just so much space that's neglected. And so I think when we put that energy into the walls, then people are changed by it. Their behavior changes. The mural that we did in Flagstaff on the Orpheum was basically in the alleyway between two buildings. And suddenly there was no more garbage. There was no more tagging going on. There was no more sort of disrespect of that space by, people were, leaving their garbage there, going to the bathroom. So I think that it kind of changed how people, changed how people saw that space, and so I think that the more we change our environment for the better, I think maybe the better people will become. So, and there's so much work to be done. There's so many blank walls. There's so many spaces in our environment that are just, trashed, really.
One of the things is, while we're painting these murals, we have a problem in this country with homelessness, and it's something me and Maggie feel very passionately about. People that have very real problems living on the streets and don't have a place to go. A lot of them will go to the library where they can be at peace. They're allowed to be there. But then outside of the library, outside some places like parks, you're really told to move on unless you're buying something and you have some money and such. So when we build these murals, and on top of that, a lot of homeless people are harassed by police or some form or another. Something's always after them to move on or do something other than stand there, be. So when we're painting a mural, we become a place where those homeless folk can go and the police don't mess with them and they can just be there. And then, and on one of their better days, they can help, Not everybody's having a day. Not everybody's functional the way everyone is. Everyone's different, and a lot of folks, they're just trying to get along and live. But we're able to provide them a safe haven while we paint these murals, and many times their ideas go into them too. So.
Well, it's really, really awesome, the ripples of good that you guys are creating with each mural that you're doing and each interaction with people in whichever community you guys are working in. I'm sure that you have inspired some of my listeners. And can you give some advice to my listeners that are interested in bringing or increasing murals in their community? How can they go about that?
Well, it's not as hard as you would think. It just takes having a good idea and believing in yourself. When I first proposed the idea of placing murals in Prescott, I didn't have any support. And in fact, when I ran around and told everybody that this is what I was going to do, they said, good luck. And and then eventually, finally, someone said, I'll put $5 on that. And then the next guy said, do you need me to help you with a website? And then pretty soon, everybody was sort of jumping in. And so just believe in what you see and ask, and share your idea and vision. You'll be surprised that there's other people that share the same vision. You're not alone. So that'd be my first tip on it. And then after that, be respectful. Go and talk to your city officials. Somebody down in City Hall would be able to help direct you to somebody if you needed to do something big, you need city money or something like that. Just ask for it. Maybe you'll get it. Otherwise, nonprofits. In our case, we go to a lot of nonprofits, and they have interests, special interests, and whatnot. They want to share these particular stories or these values or whatnot. How we can put a mural together that would help their mission. For instance, the Safe Routes to School program in Prescott was just getting started, and they were just simply trying to get routes that kids could go to school safely. And they said, well, let's ask the Mural Mice if they'll paint a mural for us and illustrate the issue. And so we did. And in the end, we did two murals for Safe Routes to School. So like I said, you'd be surprised. There's other people that are very interested in doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times when the kids are asking me how to go about painting murals, and oftentimes if you especially for younger artists that are just kind of getting out there, there's so many people that want a mural. Everyone wants a mural. Funding is another issue, but if you can get some art up on a wall somewhere, then someone is going to ask you to do another one. So for younger artists that are just wanting to break into the field, I always just say, well, go paint a mural somewhere, a small one, doesn't have to be very big. And then someone will ask you to do their wall, and then you can say, well, I need a little bit of money for supplies. I need some money for my labor. So that's kind of helps to get things going. the other part is to believe in yourself. Sometimes you can't take no for an answer. And so,
and that's with everything in life, honestly. If you're passionate, just keep on pushing.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the common good. I mean, if it's bad art, then maybe it'll get better. If it's good art, it might get worse.
I think our first mural is not, we were just learning really how to paint. So come a long way,
Yeah, this is something I want to discuss was the necessity being the mother of creation. It's so true. Sometimes we'd be going forward on raising money for a project and painting at the same time, and I'm jumping off the scaffold and going back and forth doing business, going to the wall painting, and all these problems that created so much stress deep down were solved. Like all the problems that seemed impenetrable, when a solution was created, it wouldn't have been created without that problem coming up. So some of the most clever things that we were able to do really came because of people putting obstacles in our way. So that's where believing in yourself and knowing that if you just are committed to what you're doing, you are going to get to the other side. And, like the theater troupe solving the problem of having too many people at a wall was great. It led to a whole nother element of what we were doing and built more on what we were doing. Endless examples I could give, but don't be afraid to experiment and fail.
Right.
I love it. Yes, I love it. So one question I ask everyone on the show, and I would love both of you guys to answer, is what do you do every day that helps support the very best you?
Well, I'm always in pursuit of my greatest work, my greatest art. So every day I'm painting, I'm always trying to bring that out and finding that within myself. I think that's, that would be my answer, is just to wake up every day with the plan of making the very best art I can, painting my best that day.
That's a good answer.
I love it.
What's yours?
Well, there's a sort of chemistry to everything, and everything's connected. And as you sit in silence and you observe things, you can see and know that there's vibrations in color, there's vibrations in sound, there's vibrations in all things, cause and effect taking place around us. And so that's an interesting formula for me. I'm not limited to painting. So right now I'm experimenting. When I'm not painting, I'm experimenting with music, and I'm learning to stay in tune with chords and notes and frequencies that I'm putting out that way. Knowing that if I find the right chemicals and the chemistry that goes together with that, then I'm going to be in harmony. Now, Maggie plays the fiddle and I play the guitar, and it's always a matter of trying to find a place where you harmonize and are in perfect synchronicity. So what I do, try to spend my time when I'm not painting and perfecting that art by learning a new art.
Harmonizing in synchronicity. That is just fabulous stuff. This conversation has inspired me to go out there and do some public art myself. So thank you.
Do it. Squeak. Yeah. Squeak up.
Squeak up for public art. And go to our website, muralmice.com.
Squeak up. I love it. I'm Teresa Gabrielle, and you've been listening to The Good with Teresa G. You can follow The Good with Teresa G on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't yet, go to the Apple Podcast and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another inspiring conversation. Thank you for listening.